Hi everyone, this is Jim. Welcome to this postmortem of my Blitz game number 806. My opponent started off with e4 and I went with c5, the Sicilian. Goes knight f3, and I go d6, classical, and he goes bishop c4. Well, I'm heading for the classical Sicilian, but bishop c4 is kind of a disruptive mood. I used to just play e6 here. You can see that's the third choice. Looks like the top choice is knight f6. I just wanted to show this line a little bit. I mean, one thing you might be annoyed by is this possibility of e5. Knight takes. But then you just play e6. You have to do something about the knight and the bishop coordinating on that f7 square. But e6 is fine. And this position is about even. I mean, this knight here is a little bit annoying, but you're going to bring your bishop out and try and chase him away. And it should be no big problem. So that's probably the best way to play against this setup with the immediate bishop to c4. I was trying a different line here. I was trying knight c6 with the idea of just stopping that e5 move. Oh, let's see. Yeah, I guess the other point I should make is that e5, although it's kind of an annoying move, is not really the main move, and white often just goes for this kind of a closed Sicilian setup. Anyway, or queen e2, but yeah, d3 is by far the most popular move there. So nothing to be scared of in that line either. Let's see. But I had a different idea here. I went with knight c6. I'm just stopping that pawn from coming forward before developing my other knight. And you see we're in a very rare position in the database. There's only 3 games here. He continued with knight c3. I go knight f6. He goes d4. And then watch what happens. There's only 3 games in the database in this position, but after I take the pawn, there's 1,000 games in the database. So what's happened here is that we've transposed into a normal position in the classical Sicilian. And with this bishop c4 here, this is usually known as the Fischer-Sozin attack. And Fischer would retreat the bishop to b3. I don't think he would castle right away, but that's the way he would play it, with the idea of kingside castling bishop to b3. It looks like the most popular move right here is bishop to e3, but there's actually nothing wrong with the immediate castling. Although probably he should have retreated the bishop here instead of playing f4. So dropping the bishop back to b3 is a perfectly normal move in these positions. You're getting away from this pawn push, which comes with tempo otherwise, and also getting away from pressure on the c-file. So that's just a loose piece there, and it's a target, and it needs to be dropped back sooner or later. So after f4, we're just out of the opening book, and I really should have tried a little harder here, I suppose, to put the question to White's play here, in particular the lack of not securing that bishop. And so the way to do that is to play d5 here. Check this out with the chess engine. Looks like d5 is the move. And then best play for White, White would throw in this exchange here and drop the bishop back this way, trying to hold on to the e-pawn. If he keeps taking, I guess this gives Black a big center. And all of these lines, it seems like Black is slightly better, or at least equal. So it looks like d5 there would have been the equalizing move after f4. And it's nice to be able to play d5 at a time when you can't answer it with e5. That's sort of what you're annoyed by in this position, that e5 kicking this knight away and cramping your position over here on the king side, and maybe it's a prelude to a king side attack. But if you can get in that d5 move at a point when he can't play e5, that's often a good idea, so something to look out for. Anyway, I played with a6. It's not a terrible move, but just not the best. He went ahead and took anyway. That's probably a slight mistake. He went with e5. Actually, no, I take that back. I think knight c6, knight takes c6 was one of the chess engine choices there, so take that back. His slight mistake was this e5 push. Maybe it's a little rushed. So I went with knight d5, which is okay. The chess engine wants to play like this. It wants to take the pawn. Here, let's go back and show this move by move. So he just played e5, take, Queen takes, bishop takes, so the king can still castle, I guess. F takes e5, then bishop here check, king h1, and knight to g4. And suddenly black's pieces have really gotten active. So I think that's why that e5 push is a little bit dangerous. I'm not sure exactly how white can defend against this threat. But anyway, it's only a slight edge to black in this position. But yeah, the chess engine likes black here. Anyway, I just continued with knight d5. And so all this, I guess, up to this point, all this has stayed in the range of about even. So slight mistakes are kind of par for the course in most openings, even among top players. They don't always play the absolute best moves. They play for interesting positions and other things. But this next move, bishop takes d5, I think that's a real mistake. Let's see, I didn't give an option. But the thing is that that's a good piece here. Why do you want to trade it off for a knight that's, I mean, it's a good knight too. You could, if you're desperate to get rid of that knight on d5, you could take with the knight here. But this kind of transformation of the pawn structure is not bad for black at all. This is not really, this pawn is not going to stay doubled because I can always trade it off against the e-pawn and weaken white's center. So I think, you know, it's just the wrong way to play it. So white has given up the bishop pair. Now black has some kind of advantage at this point in the game, and I keep it, I think, most of the way, although there's 1 point in the game, so we'll get there. Let's see. Yeah, he continued with queen g4. Yeah, so he was just sort of going directly for the king side attack. The chess engine would just go ahead and castle. I was a little bit annoyed about this f5 move, you know, thinking he could get in this tactic, you know, with the bishop there, taking advantage of the pin, and then the pawn comes forward, picking up the exchange, a common sort of tactic here. But, well, you have to look at the details. So he takes f5 after he plays f5, so he doesn't have time to play that tactic right away because I can just take his queen. So the queen drops back. Then I can take this pawn, and then the point is revealed here. Now if he tries bishop h6, I have this great tactic, queen b6 check, hitting the king and picking up the bishop. So by tactical means, in this position, I can castle and I can hold off this bishop h6 idea by tactical means. So that means that's just a good position for black. And this idea of f5 and bishop h6 just doesn't work for white, so he should play something else there. Anyway, I played g6, so that stops him from playing that tactic as well, but it's not as good an answer. It creates some dark squared weaknesses that he might exploit later. But well, he continues kind of slowly. The chess engine would just get the bishop out immediately. He starts to bring his knight over. Of course, if he's set on a kingside attack, he's got to do something like this. But the chess engine is not approving. It thinks that as the knight is maneuvering around, white is basically wasting time. And this is a bit of a slow move, but it seems that it's still okay. Let's see. He gets his bishop out. That's true. Maybe I could have tried that queen b6 check at some point, but it seems to be an okay line for black as well. So I developed my bishop. That was the idea, pushing the a-pawn forward. He goes rook f to d1, putting it opposite my queen. So bring my queen over to c7, looking at this loose pawn here, although I'm not going to take it probably because my queen might get chased around to some awkward squares. Anyway, he defended anyway, so I didn't have to worry about that. But the other idea of this move was I was putting pressure along this axis, and now I can take this pawn. And then now this next move is my first real mistake of the game. It looks like I can just go ahead and take. Once again, I was a little bit worried about what kind of activity he could get with his bishop, like bishop d4 check, not check, bishop d4 chasing the queen back. And then I was worried about the queen getting to this square. It turns out it's just hard for the queen to get to that square. So the bishop is covering the dark squares here. The pawn is covering that light square. So, and my queen is covering this square here. So if his queen wants to get to that square, it really has to go here. Not the best move. And then the move bishop to g5. hits the rook, but also covers the h6 square. So now the queen is not getting into any of these squares. And this diagonal is also all covered. So if he wants to get some tactic on the diagonal, he's going to have to drop the bishop back and get his queen over to d4 and set up a battery that way, and I'll have time to deal with that. So that kind of thing is actually a bit hard to spot in a blitz game, I will say. So being a little bit cautious about putting your queen out where it can be harassed and where your opponent might get a attack going is maybe a reasonable thing to do in a blitz game, but actually, in truth, it was safe to take that pawn, and then that would kind of cement my advantage. I decided to just exchange off that dangerous bishop with bishop to c5. But now the game is closer to even. I mean, there's still an edge for black, but it's no longer a winning edge. I did notice that I would take that bishop back with check, so I gain a tempo here. And so I can get my queen back in time to defend against his attacks with the knight and the queen. He has his knight coming into this square. Sorry, this square or this square because of the pin on the G file. So I'd have to be worried about these ideas. So I drop my big queen back to defend along the second rank here, the 7th rank. But maybe queen e7 directly would have been a better move, because I end up going there anyway. He plays rook e1, defending the pawn, and then I go queen e7. So I guess if I'd gone there directly, this pawn would still be loose. Otherwise, the position would be pretty much the same. Anyway, now he goes knight h5, and I go f5. So f5, I guess, is a little bit of a mistake, but it's actually a little hard to find a good move here. The chess engine would play it like this: h6, knight f6, check, king here, and then c3. What's funny is that there doesn't seem to be any immediate follow-up, and the chess engine is just going to kind of sit on this position. But now white is better in this position. So the combination of my moving my queen around and that not taking the pawn and those queen maneuvers got me into a slightly worse position. But white doesn't have an immediate attack here, so white has to kind of maneuver a bit slowly. I think maybe bringing the rook up and out might be a way to increase the pressure here. Might have to play something like that. But it looks like the chess engine did not find any kind of winning attack here. It just gives a slight edge to white. I think the idea is to just kind of sit on the position, maybe slowly improve the pawn structure over here on the queen side, maybe do some rook maneuvers, but there doesn't seem to be any big breakthrough attack. So that's one way to play it. I went with f5, and after this move, black is definitely better. The queen has to go to f7. Okay, but once again, he has to play this somewhat cautiously, so that the chess engine's top move here was b3. I think c3 was also a candidate. But the point is, once again, there's no breakthrough. White kind of can sit on this position for a while. The knight can come in here, but hard to say what it's doing exactly there. It's putting more pressure on this pawn, but I can bring my bishop back to defend. So looks like it's a position where white is better, but there's no breakthrough, and white is going to have to do some maneuvering to try and exploit his advantage. But the advantage white has is, my pieces are all tied up over here. His rooks are free to roam. So I think white, with good play, could probably convert this to a win. Anyway, instead of playing slowly, he just grabbed this pawn, which I guess looked like a free pawn to him, and it overlooked this nice tactic. So that little backwards moving bishop move. Backwards moves, they say, are hard to spot. So I guess you'll always be on the lookout for backwards moves. But also, I'd been thinking about this bishop c8 move anyway, because I realized my e-pawn was under-defended, and that was one of the ways I had of defending it. And of course, whenever you put your pieces on a diagonal like that, you have to watch out for skewers. So it's a win for black after here. Well, with good play, of course. Let's see. He went rook f1, which gives up the whole rook. He could have played a little better like this, knight f4. and hoping to just give up the exchange. Black can, the best play for black is actually rook a6 here, taking advantage of the pin still. Queen e2 to unpin, and now this wins a piece, basically. Queen takes, knight takes, bishop takes. Oh, yeah, actually, I'll go ahead and give the computer line. It's queen takes, bishop takes. It gets the most material off. So black has a bishop for 2 pawns, but this pawn is probably going to fall, and so it's a bishop for 1 pawn and a win for black in the endgame. So that's best play. But the way he played it gives up a whole rook. But on the other hand, he keeps his attack going, and so that actually pays off at a certain point. So let's see, he dropped his queen back. I put my king to h8 so that I could threaten his knight. Knight drops back, and I go with bishop to f5 so I can round up this pawn. He goes h4, and I go rook a to c8. Wanted to activate my rooks, and I was thinking, of bringing it up to the 4th rank here. That might be useful. It goes c3, and then I went rook c4. He went h5, and now, yeah, the chess engine says I should just kind of ignore this stuff over here, drop my rook back to c6, let him take, and he can't really break through on this side. It's funny. So he could try things like queen h4 check, driving my king back here, lifting the rook. But my bishop is covering this square, so the rook can't actually come over very easily to the h file, and I have time to just grab this pawn, and so I'm just secure here, and I'm a rook up. So this is just a win for black. I gave up the exchange here. I just was trying to reduce the number of threats and also get rid of the knight moves, the knight forks. They can be sometimes tricky to deal with in a blitz game. So he took back. Oh, he took with the queen, right? And then I grabbed the pawn, and he took here. And now here's where I really start to make mistakes. Well, there's 2 mistakes in a row here. So what should I do here? First, here I should just take with the pawn. In fact, that was when I was playing this. That was my original idea. And then I noticed that he's got this nasty pin on the bishop, and he can play g4, trying to take advantage of that. But unfortunately for him, that doesn't work at all. That's because I can play bishop e4 check. So the point is that I was kind of scared of ghosts at this point. Yeah, so I should just take with the pawn. That solidly defends the bishop. If he tries to harass the bishop, I can move the bishop with check. And if he, kind of goes for a slower approach, then I have time to, get my queen away from that pin, or bring my king over to defend. Either way, it just takes 1 move to unpin that bishop, and I've got it because he doesn't have the immediate g4 there. So that's why taking is really the best move. It's the most natural move and the move I intended to play. And then I saw that tactic, which doesn't work, but I didn't think about it hard enough, and I went this way. I realized I was still defending the bishop, but that lets him get some play with this check. And then finally here, I really just need to move my king, give up this pawn, and then play with the bishop like this. And he's got some play, but I'm still winning. So my second mistake in a row here was this move, queen to f6. And can you see the winning tactic for white here? It's kind of a cool tactic. So pause the video, see if you can spot the move. Okay, I'm going to give the answer away now. So the answer is rook takes bishop. Yeah, this queen is pinned. I can't take the rook. And if I take the queen, instead of taking here, he takes the queen back. And what is this? This is a rook and pawn endgame where white is a pawn up. So white has all the winning chances here. I mean, maybe I could still hold a draw being a rook and pawn endgame, but there are pawns on both sides of the board. My pawns are looking pretty weak here. I think white has excellent winning chances there. So anyway, his big mistake here was not exploiting that. He had just traded queens at this point, and I am winning, and I finally convert this. So let's just walk through the rest of it. Yeah, there weren't any big mistakes in this part. So I played a decent end game here, mopped up his pawns with the extra piece, and at some point I decided to give back the bishop for his last pawn, which is what you can do when you have an extra piece. And now I have this winning endgame with pawns on both sides of the board, and there's nothing really he can do about it. He played on a few moves, but well, this move here, rook f2 check, just loses the rook. So, but he wasn't going to be able to stop me from queening that pawn anyway, or one of those pawns. So he resigned after losing his rook. But anyway, it was a fun game. Hope you guys enjoyed this, and I will see you again soon. Bye.